Perfect. Episode 55. We are live. Hello, Kira.
Hi, Geoffrey. How are you?
Doing well. Just you know, keeping the keeping LA life going amongst the hoping. We have the pandemic still happening here, but we're hoping that we're getting towards some trace of optimism here, and that's everybody's kind of hanging in there. We're all still wearing. We've got our masks out here. We've got we're trying to we're following all precautions as closely as we can. Some people are doing a better job of it than others here. I've seen other places that are just totally chaotic as far as that goes, but we're hanging in there. Otherwise, overall, we're hanging in there. How are things in Georgia?
Things are well. I think I don't know if you feel it, but I feel like energetically we're like getting close to the hump over this. Like over like pandemic-y
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like I feel people are now like, okay, I gotta get the vaccine. And I might have sent it to you, that link where you can sign up if your city has extra oh, perfect timing.
The cat's always visiting. We love the cat. She's always hanging out.
Right.
Likes to be our guest on the podcast here for those listening to audio. Um,
But I feel like we're really getting close to maybe getting back to some normalcy, I dare say, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I think that. I mean, we at least here we've opened the outdoor dining again, which was a step in the right direction. Because I felt that I had big questions about closing when they closed outdoor dining the second time, because it caused people out here to indoor gather, which is actually worse because a lot of people aren't listening to the restrictions, sadly, anyway. But they did open that, and that was a step in the right direction. I wouldn't say we're anywhere close to normalcy yet here, but there does feel, I do see cases declining, and I think I saw deaths were down considerably as well. I would hope in 3 to 6 months that things will be another step closer.
You think it'll be
um,
3 to 6 months? I'm thinking a little bit more like 6 months.
until normalcy.
Yeah. I
Although
mean,
normalcy is kind of hard to define.
we can't even get the vaccines. I mean, the vaccines are still a nightmare.
Yeah, I think 3 to 6 months until we have another. What I was saying was another step towards,
Oh,
in
sure.
the right
Got it.
direction. I don't think we'll be, and I think normalcy is fleeting. It's kind of hard to define. So what is
Yeah.
normalcy? But I think we're looking at, and I've said this all along, 2022 before things are, you know, back to what people would think of as quote normalcy. We've still got a ways to go for that. But all we can do is keep going, right?
Of
So
course. And we have Jeff and Kira,
Jeff
you
and Kira
know,
live.
keeps us, keeps some people sane and keeps us from losing our brains.
That's right. That's right. And today on Jeff and Kira live, we have a good discussion because it's really something people have been thinking about a lot, which is how has you look at social media. Everybody's been on social media constantly, even more during the pandemic. And what we wanted to get into today was influence and celebrities, and what people's what's the best way to put it? How much power does that have in 2021 and beyond? And how much is it impacting people? And is everybody still striving to be influencers? Are they still, a lot of people, it used to be people were like, oh, movie stars and all that. How much is that changing? And you had sent me an interesting article which talked about how there was a TikToker who was she made a video about how people should unfollow powerful people on social media because they were what was her reasoning behind, she used the term eat the rich, which I think people are using more and more. What was her reasoning behind why she wanted people to unfollow
You
certain
know,
celebrities?
she's actually pretty smart. She's like a Gen Z or maybe super late Gen millennial, but um
Jenna Bologna. I don't know how to say her last name. Gina
I is it
Bologna?
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 Bologna.
Bologna. Jenna
Isn't
or
that
Gina
red meat?
Bologna?
Isn't Bologna red meat?
Yes. Yeah.
Or bologna?
Bologna. But it's
I don't,
pronounced, it's actually spelled the same way, I
oh, it
think.
is. It is, right? I'm
I
not
think
dumb.
so. Yeah, I think there's. These are our side conversations. I think it is spelled the same way in the official, like. Hang on, I gotta check this.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
in
it
Italy, in Italian, oh, well, bologna, yeah, bologna sausage. But I think the American way to spell it is with a Y, bologna. You can spell it both ways, is the bottom line. You can
okay, I
spell
don't
it
feel
both ways. Anyway, go
so
ahead.
she said and basically posted a TikTok video saying that, and it got liked by I think it's over 100,000 people now, that to unfollow billionaires like Kylie Jenner, um, in order to take back 1% of their marketing and their income, because they're just so enormous and so big that it's like a plan to reduce 1% of the funding that goes to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of, because she used to work in marketing, she knows that Kylie Jenner, for example, or any of these influencers get paid by how many people follow them. And if we unfollow them, then they won't get paid as much. So I think this notion actually, and it was really interesting in the article because it talked about eat the rich, and I didn't realize it's actually a really old term. It goes back to the 1800s.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, I think COVID has really pushed that even more into the light. I mean, I don't know if you remember during when COVID first kind of started and the pandemic and the shutdowns, and you'd have like J-Lo talking from her house, like, oh, this is so hard, and it was like people were just annihilating her for
Yeah.
that, because it's like you're just completely out of touch.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pandemic has really pushed even more this eat the rich mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think this is going to be a bigger movement than what we see the news covering.
And how so? How do you think that, like, what do you think inevitably could happen? Do you think there's going to be more of this?
Yeah, I think, a really good example of when this started to become a thing, or a little bit more in mass media or mass pop, was do you remember when Ricky Gervais did his monologue?
Yeah.
And the monologue was so brilliant at the
Yeah.
Oscars. It was like, and you saw Tom Hanks's face, like, okay, then. I mean, the vast majority of the response the next day was like, thank you, Ricky Gervais, for speaking on behalf of the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Because celebrities are always the first to tell us like what we should and should not do. And, I mean, and he basically, in so many words, told everyone, all celebrities to sit down and shut up because you know nothing about the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think celebrity crush or celebrity status is on a downward trajectory for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The Kardashians are no longer on TV. I think there's a reason. Look, Kris Jenner is not an idiot. She would sell her kids, on the side of the street if it meant getting more money. There's no reason why they would have quit that show other than research or studies or data that she probably got from an agency saying that viewership's not that great and we're going to start to see a downturn.
Yeah.
And I think we're in that. I think the idea of this influencing stuff, I think is think we have finally hit the peak and we're slowly getting away from it. And on top of that, Gen Z hates influencers. They hate celebrity influencers. And because each year that the Gen Zs get older, the more influential their opinions are about society,
Yeah.
and what happens in it. Skinny jeans was just canceled by Gen Z.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. No, totally. So to take the devil's advocate here, which I often do, I don't really. Well, I remember the Ricky Gervais speech, and it was it was brutal. It was quite rough, and I find myself watching it. I was really like surprised. As I think a lot of people were, that he said that about a lot of people. But I also, a lot of celebrities, it's just gotten way. A lot of that has gotten way out of hand.
Did you think it was funny though? I thought it was hysterical.
It's been a while. I would have to go back and watch it and really be able to evaluate what I felt on it. I'm a little bit more pro Hollywood, the Hollywood people than perhaps you are. I don't know, but I feel like
I'm not anti-Hollywood, Jeff. It's just the celebrity. I mean, here's an example. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is typical LA bullshit that I couldn't stand when I lived there. Okay. During the pandemic, this just happened January for New Year's. I'm here, mind you, and I'm watching the news, and all these TikTok mega stars that are making millions of dollars are having like 1,000-person parties. And you have like in a city that has 1 out of 2 people with COVID.
Well, I thought that was ridiculous. Yeah.
But that's the celebrity grossness. You know what I mean? That like permeates that city.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I'm actually like, I like the eat the rich.
Yeah.
I think that's, and when you read articles that Jeff Bezos made, $12 billion during the pandemic, it makes you a little angry. You know what I mean? So like, I could see why this woman would create, an online kind of petition.
Yeah.
Thing of like unfollow, influencers.
So my question then is, so what happens, people start unfollowing influencers, celebrities, like where does that lead things in the world of entertainment and in the world of social media? Is she wanting to get rid of celebrities and influencers, or she's just wanting to tone it down some? What's the?
I personally, in my humble opinion,
yeah,
I think the days of Perez Hilton, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, all those types of people, I think those are numbered significantly.
Really?
I think we'll always have celebrities. I think we'll always have that interest, into the rich and famous, but I don't think it's going to be nearly like it was.
Right.
I don't think we're going to see the power that random people, somehow get into. I mean, nobody knows what Kylie does, and Perez has completely lost his mass following that he used to have because nobody cares about this stuff, and I think I think Hollywood will always be there, whether it's in Hollywood or Hollywood of the South, like it is here in Atlanta. But I don't think it's going to be such a glam, over the top type of thing.
But okay, that's interesting. But you also mentioned there, I wanted to go from the Ricky Gervais speech into you mentioned Generation Z not liking or not being as into celebrities and power of influence. but Generation Z is very into like TikTok and stuff, right? Like the TikTok stars.
Yeah, but they're into like
What are they
more
into?
organic type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like they're not, I mean, you've got, yes, of course, it's like my niece, who's like loves the TikTok stars, but then
Yeah.
you've got like a bigger portion of the Gen Z that just likes the humor of it and isn't like enthralled in the celebrity status of these people. They just like their content,
That's good.
not like going after the person and is like upset. It's not like the Beatles obsession. Do you know what I mean? That where they're like obsessed with, you know, Ringo or John. It's
There was an
more,
obsession. There used to be an obsession
yeah,
20,
like people
30,
are
40 years ago.
obsessed with Kylie
Right.
or Kim, and they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Whereas the people that are creating content, yes, they're popular because of their content, not for who they are personally. So the
I like
brand,
that. I think
I
that's
think they
great.
do. I mean, my God, let's give substance to people's brands that actually have substance to it. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And content that we can enjoy.
100%.
So, I mean, I like it. I think it's a good move. I do. You've been on Clubhouse, yes?
Yes. Of course.
We've talked about that. I believe that's the next wave. That's like social media 2.5. I
Mhm.
think we're moving into that.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's great. You do lose hours of your day if you're on it. I mean, it's like it'll escape you, and it'll be like 9 o'clock at night, and you're like, oh my God, I've been on Clubhouse for 8.5 hours.
Right.
But you're actually learning something. You're actually contributing to society in some aspect. I have seen people talk about that it is a bit elitist.
Yeah, I've seen those discussions on social media about that, and that they're not
And
limiting certain voices and such, or something.
well, I've been in a few rooms where I was like, okay, a
Really?
lot of Gen Z moderators
Yeah.
who are like, shut up, I don't like your opinion. And they block you and then silence your microphone. And I'm like, no, we don't do that. Like, no.
Oh wow. So they just like
So Gen Z is very quick to like say, oh, can't canceled. You know what I mean? Like they're just easily blocking
to get
things. Like
yeah.
we don't like skinny jeans. We don't like. I mean, they know exactly what they like and what they don't like. And if they don't like something, they will
Flush it just out.
correct. You're out.
Yeah.
You know. So it's one thing to keep in mind when we are moving into these new networks, and as Gen Z gets a little older, that they are getting a little snobby snob. But
Yeah.
I've noticed, I'm like, hey, little girl.
Yeah.
I'm like, watch your mouth. I mean,
mean,
some of these terms are interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, I have been on Clubhouse, and I actually I find just the thing about me is anything new like that, I automatically find it interesting just out of like curiosity at all
Right.
else. So I'm finding that it very interesting as well. But a couple other things before we get to that too is I do notice in regards to entertainment and celebrities and stars and stuff. I notice on Twitter that media personalities and people there are much rougher on celebrities and comedians and just everything than they used to be. Like they're pretty rough, on a lot of people in Hollywood. And as like I said, I sometimes don't like it. But a lot of people love it when they're rough. I have kind of mixed feelings on that. Like I really do, because I think they should be tough on everyone, but I also just don't like being brutal to people when you don't necessarily need to be, or maybe some people think they need to be. But
But
it's been rough what some people are
you've been on
saying.
Twitter. Yeah, I mean, you've been on Twitter a lot longer than I have, but what I've noticed is it's kind of not pleasant. If you're on it too long,
Yeah,
it's it's a really negative environment. There is nothing that's talked about that's like that's even remotely positive, no matter who you follow, because there's always some shitty comment. It's worse, I think, than Facebook when it comes to the way people are just going at it. I just it's not a nice environment at all.
But you mean everybody's constantly attacking and criticizing, and it's
Yeah,
just like everybody's walking around stabbing each other on it, is what you feel like?
yeah, I go on it sometimes, you'll see me tweet here and there, but it's not that's why I like Clubhouse, because Clubhouse, you don't have any of that. It's way more appropriate. And I think it's because we can hear each other talk and it's not typing. The minute you type something out, you can be like, well, you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. You can't, no one's going to say that over a microphone. Do you know what I mean? In front of 5,000 people in a room, because they're going to know you because you have a profile and be like, who the hell is this person? On Twitter, and on social media, you can't really be like that.
You know what? It's so interesting, though, that you say that, because people on Twitter are really tough on Clubhouse, if you haven't noticed. There's a lot of criticism. And you wonder if it's like a certain type of people like Twitter more, or if it's like a certain culture, like Twitter's its own culture. But people on Twitter are pretty brutal on Clubhouse people.
Well, if you think about it, I think each social media network has its place.
Yeah.
Because not everyone likes Facebook, or, and like Gen Z hates Facebook. They think it's ridiculous. So Facebook's turning into like for old men, basically, and women. And then you've got Instagram, which is a hodgepodge of all kinds of stuff. And people are now zombie scrolling, and now people are like not wanting to do Instagram at all, because it's just, they're realizing how much of a time suck it is.
Instagram had like a peak like 3 years ago, like 2017. It was really peaking, and I feel like it's kind of, but yeah, was there other stuff you're gonna say? Or
and then Twitter used to be like a quick information sharing, and now it's turned into like a war room,
a war zone.
Like, and then you've got Clubhouse now that actually, honestly, I've been in some rooms that were pretty incredible discussions where people are talking about some really private kind of stuff with complete strangers, as it pertains to relationships or whatever it is. Or even just philosophically of like, how do we change society for the better, or whatever, I've had nothing but positive experiences there. And I'm actually like, I feel smarter after I'm off of it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas any other social media, I feel like I'm getting more dumb. So I like the fact that we're moving into a social media 2.5 of like, hey, maybe we can use social media for the good. You know what I mean? Instead of just bashing one another, because your brain can't handle that much negativity on a daily basis. And that's why I can't be on Twitter very often, because it's just like, ugh, it's painful.
Yeah. And I think that I think it is interesting, though, that the Twitter people are being very tough on Clubhouse right now. And I wondered, I think that's interesting, the contrast in how the networks differ. But like you were saying about the different networks, they do differ. And it's kind of like there was a tweet going around yesterday about comedians, and how a lot of it had like a bunch of mainstream comedians like Conan O'Brien and Jimmy Kimmel and a couple others on there. And it was like, why are none of these comedians, and this brings us into the next part of the discussion, why are none of these comedians as funny on Twitter? And the tweet was correct, because the jokes from Kimmel and Conan and these other people really weren't the tweets from them were not funny. And the first things people chimed in, like, oh, it's because they don't have their writers, or they don't have their, and then it got a little deeper, and some people were saying, and I think this is really interesting, how it's different to tweet comedy versus do live stand-up. So the platform for a comedian tweeting is different than when Kimmel's, for example, is doing live stand-up comedy. And I think that's really interesting, just from a an artistic standpoint, from a social media and communication standpoint, that certain people can thrive in different realms. And it can be as simple as the written text, like what we were just saying, with like, here it's audio on Clubhouse versus tweeting is just written. People were picking that up. They were noticing that was like applying to comedy. And then on top of that, there was a tweet going around that Yashar tweeted, which, I mean, it seemed like not a coincidence, because he tweeted this out right after that tweet was going around about the comedy. He tweeted a video of like Jay Leno from, I don't know, 25 years ago sometime, and it was like jokes about Monica Lewinsky, and you know,
Right.
a lot of it was in bad taste, like if you look at it now. And of course, a lot of people were responding to that. The comedy, and this is all on this topic, the comedy was different in the 90s than it is now. So
Of
there's
course,
three.
everything evolves.
What's up?
I mean, of course it's different. Of course, everything evolves. The acting is different. You know, people don't act like Marilyn Monroe used to, or Gene Kelly.
But
there's evolutions to things and evolutions to artistic expression.
so there were three interpretations. The first interpretation was, and this is the one that I was well, the first interpretation was, hey, it's still funny. Like, this is comedy. It's like, give him a break. Like, why are we all being so tough on comedy? Like, he's a comedian. Like, that's one interpretation. The second one is people see it and they're said, oh, well, comedy was different back then. You know, what we were just saying. Like, now, we find different things funny. Like, if you look at There's Something About Mary, the movie, or Mrs. Doubtfire, the movie, there's so many things now that people would be offended by in those that we weren't offended by. A lot of Jim Carrey movies that we weren't offended by in the 90s. So people's like, it changes. But that's the second interpretation. The third interpretation that I've noticed, and this is the one that I was talking about, which could very well be it, I don't know, there's these three things happening, is because we have social media and because we have the internet now, more people are able to get their voices heard via these social media networks. So when Jay Leno was giving the comedic / offensive / whatever you want to call it monologue, was there this much personal outrage? Were people offended, and you just didn't hear their voice because you didn't have social media and the internet to broadcast your offense to it, That was my theory, is maybe these people, everybody would have always been upset, but you only heard what the mainstream narrative of Jay Leno was, which was, haha, this is funny, you're supposed to laugh. Like, that's everybody. So Jay Leno gets a job and he gets a show, and that's highly questionable. Like, I understand that interpretation of it's highly questionable. I portrayed that it could be that AI and internet and social media, allowed us to see all these people that are upset. And so humans, when we hear the outrage, when we hear people's opinions, we automatically, a lot of people have empathy, or like, oh, that person's offended. Jay is being offensive. I'm now going to believe Jay's being offensive. So then we take on that. It becomes like a groupthink thing, But what caused that? What caused that was AI and the internet and the opening up and more people's opinions being heard. Were people's opinions just not heard in the 90s when they were offended? And that's how Jay came to be. I think that's one interpretation. Might be thinking too deep of it. I think the other things are that one is just we've changed, like comedy's changed, what you were saying about Gene Kelly. Or two, it's like still comedy. Like, fuck you all, like give it a break. Like, it's still comedy, So I don't know, but I think that brings in the, influence. Like, how do you do comedy now? Like, what's influential now? What is it? Kind of what is your interpretation of that? Like, how do you think that plays out?
I think it's a combination of all three, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that, well, one, to go back, Jimmy Kimmel and Conan aren't funny on Twitter because normal people are funnier on Twitter.
And why is that? Why is that?
Some people have mastered the art of the English language and can craft it in a way that is a dry humor. And
on Twitter.
And Jimmy Kimmel and Conan don't have that. Conan's much more of a without
Stage.
yeah, without the stage presence of Conan and the way, the mannerisms and the nonverbal, kind of communication stuff,
Yeah.
gestures, all of that kind of stuff, he falls very flat. So I think, I mean, and on top of that, you're right. The forum of social media has opened up the world to lots of people that aren't celebrities that are like funnier than celebrity comedians.
That's the other
So
thing.
then you're kind of like, oh, he's actually not that funny. My friend Joe just posted something really hilarious and it's going viral. That's way funnier than Conan. Who cares about Conan? And that's what we're seeing,
Yeah.
right?
Celebrity again. Right. It's
The whole like, oh, it's Conan. It's like, who gives a shit?
right.
Who's that?
Right.
The guy down the street is funnier with his like witty comeback. You know what I mean? Now that we have this platform, we all can be a celebrity in our own right if we have the aptitude for it, right? Not everyone obviously is funny or not everyone is witty, but um that's two things, right? It's like, yes, comedy has evolved. Yes, we have AI and we have social media, so it gives a platform to lots of people. Um and three, I think, and it's hard for me to say this because I don't want it to sound crass or uh, unsympathetic, but I think COVID has really pulled the air out of comedy. And I think Black Lives Matter and Me Too and all of that. And I don't mean that like, oh, like damn these movements. These movements had to happen. Pandemic maybe didn't had to happen, but you know, I mean, throughout history, there's always going to be those buckets of time where things just aren't that funny, and there's not so much to laugh at,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But I think nowadays, people are really serious, like really serious,
Hmm.
and everyone finds things offensive, and it can be so I think it's a tough platform for comedians right now to even remotely come across as humorous. I mean, SNL is bombing right now because Biden is president and there's not really anything funny now. We're all exhausted from the last 4 years, whoever you voted for. Now it's just like, I don't, I'm so tired that, I don't want to, I
So
don't want
go
to.
ahead. Yeah. I mean, I think that the comedy, I think that's a big part of it is people are exhausted. But I think a big part of it though is what you were just saying, what we were both saying, and that we're seeing other people who social media has allowed us to see more funny people, and it's that's been a big contributor to that as we see what else is out there. I also think it's probably there's a difference from stage to social media, from being
Yeah.
like a stand-up comedian versus on a Twitter timeline. I think that is a different platform, so I think that's probably a factor. So I think there's different variables, but I think that AI and social media are and the internet are what's changing that, and I think that's got to be a frustrating thing for Hollywood. Like that's got to be because it's really taking away. It's always been this magical place, which I actually, as an actor and having aged, I actually have a lot of empathy, way more for it than a lot of people do, because I came out here to do all that, and I'm here now. Like it's always been like this magical, the movies and such. I mean, obviously there's all these people who attack it and such, which I like. They attack it from like a Q standpoint and all that stuff, which I actually hate and get into fights with them. But attacking the celebrity and stuff of it all, I think is a whole other thing. And it is really, that's got to be tough for people who are successful in the Hollywood business, the LA business, Hollywood business, because social media is changing the whole game on that. It really on so many fronts, and I think the comedy, just what we're talking about here, is a good kind of lens to look at it and kind of see how that's changing. I thought that,
what is there? I am dying for something funny. Do you realize I'm watching like old Ricky Gervais, Netflix specials and stuff because what shows are out? What movies are out? There's nothing funny.
mm-hmm.
Everyone is taking, like, I think it's hard because you have to have a balance between caring about COVID and what's happening and all of that. And then there's like for my own mental sanity and stability, I need to laugh and to like enjoy life and have fun.
Well, you should go check out the show. A show my friends and I watched, which came out a couple years ago, which we would always watch, is Hello Ladies, which I think is just hysterical. It's with Stephen Merchant, who I find to be hysterical.
I love him.
And it's about he and his buddies going about the bar scene and the Hollywood scene. It's like the comedic version of Entourage, but it's really funny. I don't know if you'd find it funny, but like that's a recent show that I really liked. But I know that.
Did you like Entourage when it came out?
Yeah, I did. I liked
it. I couldn't watch Entourage when it came out because we were working at CAA at the time.
Yeah.
And that was like our life, and it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, context is like really important. But, to your point, I mean, like you would hear agents screaming at their assistants and throwing staplers and stuff. And like Lloyd on Entourage would get, his ass kicked, as the character. And it was like, yeah, but I have to deal with that on a daily basis. It's actually not that funny.
Yeah, I think that I think the two perspectives on that, and I think you agree to this. The CAA was kind of, I mean, we were both there. I think it was kind of divided in that there were people that were like, a lot of people kind of rebelling against it and wouldn't like Entourage, while there were other people that loved Entourage because they felt they were in it and could connect to it, and they were working with the people in it, so they were like invested in Entourage.
Right.
Like, so you know what I'm saying? Did I like it? I liked the show, but I liked the show just because I found it funny. I mean, a lot of people have attacked the show too, which I don't really necessarily agree just about what it's about, and just these guys trying to I don't agree with that. I thought it was just a funny show that I enjoyed. I mean, they're trying to. They've now got like have you seen that, like an Entourage podcast and such out now?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Dave is his name? Doug Ellen, who's the creator, started a podcast, and he brings back the cast and such in doing it. That's pretty hard to do. Like 5 years after the show or whatever it is. Like, I'm surprised he's able to, because people aren't invested that much later. But he's starting a podcast like everybody's doing these, so at least he's trying to do it. So props to him there. But
so do you think? I mean, this goes along the lines of social media and the influence of social media and the power it can have, or the way it can empower people. The movement of eat the rich, or this movement of Britney and free Britney.
Yeah.
And so do you think, like right now, Justin Timberlake is getting like attacked for being misogynistic, when he was 18 or whatever. So do you think like a Jay Leno, or do you think that these people should apologize for what they did 20 years ago or whatever? Because everyone seems to be holding everyone accountable for what they said like literally 20 years ago. And it's like, I mean, at what point do you move on and say, or should he come out with a statement? Is that what we're doing? We're hanging everyone up to dry?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what goes back to what we were discussing a second ago. And I think this is a big part of all this, which I don't know why it's not discussed more, is I don't understand uh, like like if we're gonna attack people from 30 years ago, well, first off, this isn't just happening to Jay Leno or the whole thing with Britney and everything else. It's happening across Twitter to so many different people. I mean, James Gunn was making, I don't know, sex jokes or something back in 2012, which would have people found funny back then, and then I don't know, the right went after him about that. He's one example of many. People go in and they find your old tweets and then they say, "Hey, look what you were tweeting about back then." But it like brings up the question, like, well, what were we thinking back then? If offended now, people were laughing back then. I don't know. I mean, all of that is just like, here's the thing. Back then, people were different. People were like a different person back then. Like 30 years ago, people change so much over time that you're literally like, it's different. Like, you change over time. Like you become different versions of who you are, you know, as time goes on. I mean, the Jay Leno today is probably very different than the Jay Leno, I don't know, 30 years ago. You know, there's different elements to people and they change. But what I don't understand is when people are outraged about whatever, James Gunn or Jay Leno or Britney or whatever, like, were they outraged in 1995 as well? And we just didn't hear about it because we didn't have social media. I can't say, I can't really give a firm opinion on this because I don't know the variables of what's really going on here. I don't think anybody does. I think we can't figure it out. But I do see the side of we shouldn't be criticizing people for 30 years ago who said things. I mean, why weren't we criticizing them back then? Like, why weren't we? And were we maybe doing it and people just weren't hearing it because we didn't have social media? So we first have to get to that discussion before we then figure out what next we're going to do about it. Because we're not even, 99% of people haven't even fleshed that out yet. I have to do it for them. Like, I have to, like...
Thank God
people aren't
here for the masses, Geoff.
Well,
what would we do without you?
I mean, they don't. Everybody just gets outraged. And does anybody think, was I outraged in 1995? If they were, that's great. I'm actually empathetic to if they were outraged in 1995 because maybe everybody should have been. So I'm empathetic to that. But they have to, if they're going to be outraged now, they should think to themselves, I was also outraged back then about Jay Leno. I was very, like, you got to be, do you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise, to at least 70% of America, maybe more, it looks like, well, everybody was laughing in 1995. Jay Leno had a show. He was, you hear the laugh audio. You hear Kevin Eubanks cracking up in the band. You know, you like, you got to address that. Otherwise, it's just outraged people. Like, am I wrong? Like,
well, I just feel like everyone's outraged. That's why there's no comedy and everything's miserable.
Because we're all just outraged.
I have to have dance parties in my own place because I'm like, I need like positivity and fun, and like everything you read is misery.
Man, I'm outraged about the outrage. Like, you're causing me outrage right now about outrage. So it's like, that's when you need to take a nap. You know?
Yes.
It's just,
yes, you have to take a nap from all the outrage because then you become outraged with the outrage.
It's outrageous. Anyway, I don't know that we're going to have the answer to that, but I hope we've given people some things to think about today with all of this, because I just am... The thing is, a given day for me on Twitter, I'm just like stumbling through confusion about everybody's opinions and stuff, because I can't... because there's just so much that I don't know, that it's just, I can't believe people know so much about everything. And I'm like an alien. I told you, I'm like an alien who just landed on a spaceship, like if they just landed and started walking around, everything everybody was saying would seem very confusing. Like, why are we mad about this? Why are we mad about that? Like every tweet, I'm trying to like figure out why that person's mad. And so I see the tweet and I'm like, well, this seems pretty important. Like I evaluate it. So I'm like, I guess I'll retweet it so that everybody can discuss so we can figure out why we're mad or not about this. And it never goes anywhere. I can't do it anymore. Anyway, we have some good viewers in here as we wind down. Phil from Twitter's here. What's up, Phil? Phil was saying Dave Chappelle's funny. Yeah.
You're right. Dave Chappelle.
He's a good.
I've been rewatching his stuff recently, and his stuff is really timely to watch right now. It's really great. He's very gifted writer, and equally amazing at delivering it. So you're right. He is really good.
And then somebody says, we've got Michael Fontaine here. He says, check out Archie Bunker.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's like, we've talked about this before, Geoff, where they remade that song, Baby It's Cold Outside, because it had connotations when it was made back in whatever year that, like, do you remember? It's the Christmas Carol that got remade by John Legend and whoever. And it's because it had sexual connotations that, like, he wasn't letting her leave. Meanwhile, the song was like written back in like the 20s or whatever. And then Gone with the Wind, I think they wanted to redo Gone with the Wind because I think Rob Reiner part? I mean, I know he's an extreme activist of making sure of not having cigarettes or smoking in his movies. And I'm pretty sure he was he either created it or he was part of the group that wants to remake all movies that have smoking in it and like extract that out of them.
Take the smoking out of the movies?
Yeah, because he doesn't
take smoking. Wait, why does he want to do that?
Rob Reiner's always been against smoking in the movies. Always. Like adamant, like crazy.
Because it promotes smoking.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, social media is, many would argue, is just as damaging as smoking. So, like, I mean, for mental health and such. So, like, when they were going to ban social media from the music, I don't know. I mean, look, he's got a. I understand what he's saying about social media, but I also understand that these things are just from the past, and Gone with the Wind. A lot of people are just like, do we really need to mess with that? Wait, somebody says I always thought Gone with the Wind was. Somebody says I always thought Gone with the Wind was racist Confederate propaganda.
See, there you go. You have people that and there's nothing, and I'm not judging that person, whoever said that. It's your own personal opinion. If you watch it today, it leans toward that. Yeah. And on top of that, a little fun fact that most people don't know about Gone with the Wind is that this was before the Humane Society either existed or was even on like movie sets. And the scenes where it would be like the battle with all the horses, and that was all real. So actually there was 110 horses that died in the making of Gone with the Wind. Like those were real horses dying in those scenes because they never had like animal protection on these movies. So
what is that? Well, I mean, that's sad and everything and bad, but so what do they want to? They want to take out the horse scene?
No, it was more of a fun fact, Geoff. But
okay. I don't know.
See, this is what I mean. Where's the humor?
Where's the so like? I mean, no. I feel that we like, that stuff's sad, but we need to like be sad about that. But that it's just too much to think about.
I feel like you're gonna take a nap after this. Is like
this one's worming me out, man.
This was a draining. It was like. You're as drained as I was when we did Mandela effects because my brain was I could see the smoke coming out of my ears when it came to Mandela because I was like I'm gonna lose my shit in about 5 minutes if we have to
Fantastic.
do one more Mandela.
Yeah, it's great. I need to make another Mandela video. But yes, somebody says we'll run through these 'cause we need to wind down. But Alicia Shepard says, yeah, she says celebrities are being depreciated a lot, but social media tech corporations are adding more unlawful restrictions than ever. Yeah, big tech's becoming. So she says, I am all for meritocracy. Um, then James Higgins says, not happy about social media. Yeah, we're all on social media, James. And then, Phil says Jim Gaffigan is offensive. Hard to do comedy in woke society. I don't know much about him.
I love Jim Gaffigan.
Really?
He's really offensive. He's done he's the only comedian that I know that I was like I felt because I'm so light and like I love, I don't take things very seriously because I think life is already serious enough. I try to find the fun in everything.
Mm-hmm.
But his work is very, you can be insulted or offended very easily by his stuff. He did a whole bit, and you can watch it on Netflix, about like rape. And it for a comedian to be able to even remotely go after rape is interesting.
Oh,
I
Phil
mean,
says he's clarifying too. He sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, he says he finds him unoffensive. So to clarify,
Oh, God,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, but it was
Never mind. Just scratch everything I just said.
no, but it was yeah, but it was bad on my end or his end, but it wasn't your fault. I feel like no, but you're right. I mean, there can be offensive things in any comedian. It's easy to find things. So I think that's a fine point. It's easy, but yes, I think Phil was ultimately agreeing with you, Kira, about him, which is good. They say Stand By Me had tons of smoking in it. A lot of movies did. I think that's the whole
Yeah, I think it was
smoking.
after Rob Reiner. I think it was after Stand By Me when he started. If you look, I can't remember when he started this whole anti-smoking and movie thing, but he's definitely a massive proponent of it. He's really, really big with it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I was talking about last night how it's funny too how these movies now you look at like I tweeted about the movie Ed TV. If you go back and you watch Ed TV with McConaughey, which Rob Reiner's also in, I think it's Ron Howard. I think Ron Howard directed it, but it's literally like how YouTube is. Like it's like McConaughey's character. They're just like kind of broadcasting this. It's more like how YouTube started, I would say. But they're broadcasting this guy in his daily life and what he's doing. It's like the beginnings of YouTube before it happened. But watching that movie with a historical lens on it is really interesting because what they're doing with Ed TV is kind of like a preview of how things became with livecast and YouTube and Periscope and all that. So I don't know, seeing the movies
Ed TV was like even pre reality show.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the first like look of what a reality show would look like, and then years later. And I apologize, whoever wrote about Jim Gaffigan. I confused him with the British comedian, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. Jim Gaffigan is definitely not offensive. He's amazing. But the British guy, even though he's an amazing comedian, he's way offensive.
Who's the British comedian? Do you guys know? Does anybody know? Who is offensive?
Yes. I mean, his stuff, you have to be like, I think it's brilliantly written. I think he's hilarious. I can't remember his fucking name.
I don't know.
Not Jim Gaffigan though. Apologies. Yeah.
I'd be curious. No, but Phil agreed with you on that. Is the bottom line. Wow, that's somebody says Ricky Gervais. You weren't. No, that's not who you mean. Right? We talked about Gervais earlier.
This is gonna drive me crazy. What is his name? Hold on. Nobody go anywhere.
Nobody go anywhere.
It's the most important thing of your daily life right now. British comedian offensive. I love how you can Google anything and it'll just always come up. Shit. Not Not Jimmy Carr. Oh my God, I can't find him.
No.
No, I have no idea.
Um. Interesting. Well,
Sorry, I can't find him.
all
I don't
good.
know. I'm pretty sure he's British or he's Irish, maybe.
Um. Oh, there it is. I was trying to find our. All right. Well, interesting. That happens. On that note, um, this was great today, Kira. We went through a
It's
lot.
always so good to see you. I was thinking about you the other day.
Yeah.
Just the other day, not every day, Geoff. Um,
Every day. Of course, Geoff and
the other
Kira.
day.
Always
And
the.
I do have to say I do miss seeing you in person.
Yeah.
I was having like a moment of like, uh, I missed seeing you, you
Yeah.
know? I missed my brother. I haven't seen my brother in like person in a really long time. Even though we talk all the time and every day and we're texting back and forth, there's nothing, just like everyone else in COVID, I think, you miss like the energy in the same room, and yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I miss my brother.
I think there's a, if you go back and you look at like some of those edited just clips of us and stuff, it was fun. There was a different energy when we did it in person. It was really like fun, and you get a magic to everybody's doing these remote podcasts, but I don't know that the remote in person brings a different energy to podcasts, to anything
I mean,
really.
we're still fun, Geoff. Speak for
We're
yourself that
still
you
fun.
fun.
Huh? What's
I
up?
mean, speak for yourself if you don't feel like it's fun.
I think it's still. I Yeah, absolutely, it's still fun. But I feel like
It's different.
it's
It's just
different.
different. Yeah,
It's a different
but
energy.
it is. So I just want to say that I missed my brother from a different mother, and yeah,
Well, we
it's always
will. We will. No, it's. I miss hanging with you in person too, Kira. We always would have a blast, and eventually we'll do some episodes in person again.
I'm sure, we never know what the future holds for any of us, even though
Yeah.
we try to control it as much as we can. All we have is right now. So I'm sure we will be doing things in person once again.
So yes, well, so thank you for the kind words, and I miss doing it with the person, and you miss doing it in person with you as well. It was always fun, and in the future, who knows what the future will hold with that. So yeah, but good times today,
Always.
as always. Episode 55 at Geoff and Kira Live, here at Geoff and Kira Live, where the future's Geoff and Kira Live. Next week, it'll be episode 56. We're gonna keep moving it along. Gonna have it on more social media, Facebook, Twitter. We want to get it on Instagram eventually. We'll just keep expanding, moving it forward. It's on Apple now. It's on Apple iTunes, on Google, Spotify. You can get us on all those. So, with that being said, see you next week, Kira.
Have a good week, Geoff. Bye, everyone.
Good week. Bye, everybody.